The United States is currently experiencing a 40-year high in inflation. It's at 8.6%. We haven't seen this since the early 1980s. And there's many people trying to debate, how the hell did we get to this point? Now, of course, if you ask the politicians, they're going to gaslight you. They're going to tell you it's every reason other than the real one. But recently, Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, was asked, if the politicians are telling us that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is actually the cause of inflation, do you agree or not? Here's exactly what Jerome Powell said.
Would you say that the war in Ukraine is the primary driver of inflation in America?
No, inflation was high before, certainly before the war in Ukraine broke out.
I'm glad to hear you say that. The Biden administration seems to be intent on deflecting blame, and as recently as just this past Sunday spread the misinformation that Putin's invasion of Ukraine is the, quote, biggest single driver of inflation. I'm glad you agree with me that that is not the truth.
Now, it's great to see the chairman of the Federal Reserve trying to stick to the facts, trying to look at the data. He said, of course, that's not the case. The inflation was already high before that occurred. Now, what we have to understand is that central bankers, they try to be as independent as possible. You can argue whether they're effective or not, whether their predictions are accurate or not, and whether the actions they take actually achieve what their stated goals are. But one thing is certain is that many central bankers, they actually try not to be political. But of course, the politicians, they're going to continue to spin the narrative, gaslight you. And of course, it happens on both sides of the aisle. What you need to do is make sure that you understand how inflation works, understand how the economy works. It's a very complex machine. It's actually almost impossible to fully understand the nuances and the different levers. But one thing is certain, the data is overwhelming. Inflation was not caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Instead, inflation was already very high. It was 7% in December of 2021. Russia didn't invade Ukraine until February. And even then, you probably have a hard time pinpointing further increases in inflation on the actual invasion. And so ultimately, the average American family, they are dealing with 8.6% inflation right now. Gasoline's up 50% year over year. The cost of food is up 12% to eat at home. It's unsustainable for the average family. And ultimately, the Federal Reserve, they remain committed. They want to get inflation down. But the risk they run is that they can push us into a recession. Maybe they can get us to a soft landing. It's a very difficult task. It would take not only a skilled central banker to do it, but also a lot of luck. And I don't think that the average investor is going to bet on that soft landing. Instead, they have to decide, will we get inflation? Will we get a recession? Or maybe we're just headed towards stagflation and a combination of both.